Welcome back to the YouTube channel. So excited that you're here, and I cannot believe that it's already time to give you the race recap from IronMan 70.3 in Waco. As you can see, I'm repping my shirt today. Super stoked to kind of just dive in, give you a whole lay of the land of exactly how the whole weekend went, and just give you kind of my own account of exactly what happened and how it all went. So we went down, the race was Sunday. We went down to Waco on Friday. It's a couple hour drive for us, so super convenient. And so we went down on Friday we got there about Friday afternoon, and we went to grab some lunch really quick before we checked into the hotel. And what was great is our hotel was not far from Ironman Village. So once we kind of unloaded everything in the hotel room, we walked over to Ironman Village to then do the athlete check-in, which is just so cool to kind of walk through the Ironman store, the whole village area, and then into athlete check-in. And athlete check-in is super convenient. They've got it on lock. You bring your QR code, your ID, all that fun stuff, and walk through, get your shirt, get your bag. I think they were giving away Kachava, and of course your wristband, which you wear the whole weekend there as well. So that was a super cool feeling. We ended up staying for athlete briefing that afternoon as well, which was really honestly super helpful even though I've read through the athlete guide multiple times, just making sure that I myself am prepared since it is my first rodeo. Having that athlete briefing is really helpful to, one, kind of meet your other peers that are there to race with you, but then two, to just receive some pointers, right? Like, where's our water temperature today? What do we anticipate maybe the weather to look like? They'll just kind of just give you a full overview of exactly what's happening the whole time you're there. So that was really convenient. And then after that, we actually had some friends that were racing as well. And so we all met up. We went to dinner, and it was honestly so good. It was exactly what we had needed. And then called it an early night, had a blast. I have a personal, I just love Waco. And, we always stay kind of right there in the downtown area, right near Baylor University. And it's just such a cool little spot. You're right along the Brazos River. It's just absolutely gorgeous. The weather was perfect. It was a little warm Friday, but nonetheless, it was fantastic. Saturday morning was great. Our kids did the Iron Kids race, which they had toddler little baby races. They had a half-mile race and a full-mile race. Our kids did the full-mile race, which was just so fun because they get to cross through that same finish line that you get to cross through a day later. And so that was a really cool experience, I think, for just all the kids. It was good for us the kids started the 1 mile race in our transition area. So it was cool to kind of walk over there, make sure we knew where transition was and where our bike rack would be and things of that nature. And then after that, went with one of our friends to do a bike. I went back to the hotel, really prepped my bike, made sure the chain was oiled, made sure it was all wiped down, made sure tires were pumped, everything was ready to go, and went on a quick 4 to 5 mile bike ride, really focusing on kind of that first. In Waco, there's this, you're trekking through Cameron Park at the start of the bike, out of transition. You trek through a little bit of Cameron Park and you go up this hill, but you're taking a left turn while you're climbing this hill, and then you're continuing a left turn to go over a bridge over the Brazos. And so it was really good for me and our friend to ride that first hill, to understand what we were going through, and to know kind of hey, what gear do we think we're going to need to be in? Are we going to need to, lift up? What, just kind of the overall logistics of the ride. And after that, did a quick shakeout run. I think it was a mile and a half, something like that, before I visited Waco Running Company, which I absolutely love. Waco Running Company, shout out to them. They have the best shirts, and I always have to grab one whenever I'm in Waco. And so went to Waco Running Company, and just kind of enjoyed the sights and sounds, before I grabbed lunch. Once I grabbed lunch, I just walked right over to Ironman Village again, did a Normatec session on my legs. So shout out to Normatec and Hyperice. Phenomenal if you've never done it. It's really cool air compression. Leggings, boots that you put on your legs, and it compresses through air, releases, compresses, releases. And it's a really good way to help your legs recover, especially after or prepping you for a long endurance event. And I typically do Normatec once, maybe twice a week at our gym. And so to have that on site in the Ironman store was phenomenal. It was super easy. It was free. And I loved it. And then all of that before we met another friend of ours from our gym that actually was down in Waco as well. And we met them for dinner, had a nice burger, French fries. This was kind of the pre-race meal, right? Before everything. And so it was great to have that meal, and it was a phenomenal restaurant right there. I think what's so convenient is being in Waco, everything's really walking distance if you're staying at a hotel near the race. And so you're able to walk everywhere, which probably isn't super great for those that are doing an endurance event the following day. However, I personally love it because I don't have to worry about parking it. I don't have to drive the car anywhere. It was super convenient and for us. Post dinner, it got real. I'll be really honest. That's when kind of the nerves really started setting in, and I'm beginning to mentally process what I'm going to go through, right? And I say I'm because it's not just my body that's going to go through this process. It's 100% of me that's going to go through this process. So it's a lot of mental that's going to, try and overcome what I know that my body can do. And so it was super great to, I'll say it was normal, and it was super great to have those nerves because it means that I'm not numb to the feeling of what I'm about to experience. And I'm very aware of my emotions and my just overall feelings heading into the race. And so I think that that's so important because you've got to be able to acknowledge that, but then be able to control that at the same time as you're going through this. And so really Saturday night was spent prepping everything. So I had laid out what I need for the swim, right? So my swim cap that they give you, I had my goggles, I had my wetsuit. It was going to be a wetsuit legal race, so had that all ready to go. Had a sweater for the morning, and then I had my tri-suit, right? Like that's everything I need for the swim. Okay, then let's go to the bike, right? My bike I had already taken to bike check-in on Saturday afternoon. That was super simple. Just put your bike there, make sure it's all checked in, ready to go. Tires were pumped, everything was ready on the bike. So now I had my helmet, I had my sweatband, I had my glasses, and then I had my nutrition, which I think is so important. So we prepped good bike bottles full of electrolytes, ready to go, and put those in the fridge for the morning. We made sure that I had Uncrustables because yes, I just want to down all the carbs while I'm on the bike. And then separately for the run, right? So we had our gels for the run. We had our run hat, a new sweatband. We had a different pair of socks, different pair of shoes. All that was kind of set out just so that I was ready to go. Before we packed it all up into a big bag, a duffel bag, so that in the morning when we went to transition early in the morning, it was ready to go, ready to be set out and and we were ready to rock and roll. And so through all that, I think you're processing like, okay, I need to make sure I have my sunscreen. I need to make sure I've eaten in the morning. Transition opened early. I think it opened at 5 a.m. And the race was set to begin at 7:27, 7:17, something like that, 7 something. And so it was vital to make sure that I had everything prepped because I didn't want to have to go back to the hotel. So I had to have everything prepped and ready to go, set out in my area so that I can race without worry. And so through that, slept kind of crappy, if I'm being honest, Saturday night, just kind of tossing and turning, and it is what it is, right? Like your nerves are next level. You're making sure you've got everything ready, you've got everything prepped, your checklist in your head is going off and off and off. And did you get your sunscreen? Are you gonna put your sunscreen on before you jump in the water? Are you gonna put it at transition? Like, just all the logistics are kind of racing through my head. And it took a minute to fall asleep Saturday night, but when I got up Sunday morning, around 3:15, 3:30, something like that, it was real. It was happening. And so, I had my coffee, I downed maybe a quarter to a half of an Uncrustable, and I just couldn't eat anymore because I was really nervous. I showered, and then I had to get ready, right? So got to make sure that everything's prepped and ready to go, that I'm in my tri-suit, that I've got my sweater. It was cold Sunday morning. I think it was like I think it was 50, but it felt like 46 degrees or something like that. So it was chilly out to get the day started. And then we trekked. So we walked over to transition around 5:15, 5:30, and set everything up. Got everything set, ready to go, and laid it all out very neatly in my next to my bike in my transition area. And then we had, in Waco, you have about a mile trek over to swim start. So trekked over there. The sun is just beginning to rise at about 7. And so it's just starting to get light out. And you're able to see the buoys, and you're able to see all the kayaks in the water, and the boats, and the folks ready to make sure that you're staying on course and ready to roll. And so I think there were 15, 16, 1,700 racers, plus their families. There's a lot of people in swim start. And it was really cool because we get to kind of line up and self-seed ourselves based on what times we think we're going to finish the swim. So I seated myself at 40 to 43 minutes, knowing that I had internally set a goal for myself at 48 minutes. But I was thinking, okay, I've done this swim in the pool, which, yes, it's not open water, but I've done it in the pool in a wetsuit in 38 minutes. Like, I think I can give myself a little bit of grace, start a little ahead of where I anticipate to be. And if I slow down okay, if I speed up okay, it's going to be fine. And what's cool about Waco is most of the Ironman races start by a cannon. Waco's a little unique. Welcome to Texas, baby. And we start by a shotgun start, and it's a lot of fun. And so from the time we started to the time I got in the water was, I think, 18 minutes, 20 minutes, something like that. And I will not forget the moment of walking down the steps onto the swim platform to get into the water. Every 5 seconds, there's beep, 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 beep. And on the long, loud beep is when you go. And there's three swimmers every 5 seconds that go out of the gate. And I won't forget just being kind of seated there, lined up, waiting, and just the nerves, but the excitement all at the same time. Like everything is hitting you all at the same time because I've worked so hard. I've spent 6+ months getting ready for this. And so I was excited, to say the least. And I was ready to roll. And so when I was getting in the water, the song by Sia, Unstoppable, was playing, which was just perfect because honestly, that's exactly the song that stuck in my head the rest of the day, that carried me through the rest of the day. And, I'm unstoppable. I'm a Porsche with no brakes. And so I think that is just, it replayed in my head a million times as I'm going through the whole day. But I get in the water, dunk your head under, and you can't see a thing. It is dirt. It looks like you were in, if you've ever been caught in like a dust devil, or for my Arizona people, like a haboob, except your face is right in front of that, and you can't see a thing. And so kind of freaked out a little bit, if I'm being honest, and I really swam about 95% of the swim with my head above water, which was hard. It was very difficult because I was not used to that. I swim most of the time with my head underwater. But it was good overall. And so in Waco, you swim a little bit upstream before you take a hard right to swim back downstream, all the way back to the swim end, swim out, and then over to transition. And so I'm swimming, you swim under some bridges where people are cheering you on, which I will tell you, the energy that gives an athlete, a racer, is just next level. So for all the spectators, and all the people that make signs, and all the folks that are there, just whether or not you're cheering for an individual racer or you're just cheering the group on as a whole, like, thank you. Because sometimes I don't think that we acknowledge that fuels a lot of people. And for people that are tired, or people that maybe don't have folks that are there to cheer them on, like, that really helps just overall the morale of an athlete. And so going through swim, and I know it's taking me a while, people are grabbing your feet, you're kicking people. I will say, when you're swimming, the buoys should be on your right-hand side, and the people in the kayaks are a lot of the time correcting people, like, hey, you need to move, like, you need to go left, you need to go left, you need to go left. I'll say it was windy on Sunday, and so the wind was coming from a northwest direction, pushing waves southeast, and the buoys are really in the middle of the river. And so a lot of people kept swimming so that, to the right of the buoys, so the buoys were on their left-hand side. And if I'm being honest, 100% honest, it was really making me upset because I'm fighting to swim so that the buoy to the left of the buoy, so the buoys are on my right, and I'm fighting to swim that way so that I know that I wasn't cheating myself. I know that I did everything that I was supposed to do. I know I swam that 1.2 miles. And so honestly, it wasn't easy. I finished, I think, at 47 minutes, 50 seconds, the swim, and got out of the swim, and you're on this swim platform that's moving because the waves are moving, and your legs are like, it takes you a second to like, whoa, I need to use my legs again. And at the same time, people are beginning to unzip your wetsuit, and you begin to run to transition. Well, the transition in Waco, if I'm being honest, is a trek. It took me from the time I got out of the water to the time I got to my bike, 2.5 minutes, and I was jogging. And so that should tell you it's quite the trek over to transition. But in transition, I stopped and had, a lot of people call them strippers. And so you get down, you lay down, and they're telling you, lay down, butt up, feet up, and they strip off the rest of your wetsuit, throw it at you, and you run to your bike. And so that's exactly what I did. It took maybe 3 seconds total. And I took that over to my transition area, wiped my feet really quick because there's dirt, there's grass, there's everything, and there's nothing you can do about it. Wiped them off really quick, threw my socks on. Yes, I bike with socks. And got my shoes on. Made sure I had my gels in my tri-suit, threw my glasses, sweatband, and helmet on, grabbed my bike, carried my bike. And the reason I carried my bike is because the grass in which transition was at had a lot of stickers, bullheads, and I did not want to get a pop tire. Honestly, that's what I was freaking out about the whole day. And so I carried my bike all the way to the cement, and then still had to walk it until I had the mount line. And once I got to the mount line, got on the bike, saw my family, I also stuck an Uncrustable in my tri-suit because I thought I was going to eat it on the bike. Newsflash, I did not eat it on the bike. So that poor Uncrustable was stuck in my tri-suit for 3.5 hours of me biking. But saw my family, waved, cheered, and I was off. And you start riding through Cameron Park, you take that turn, you go up over the Brazos, you take a right, you go past Baylor, and then you're trekking. You're trekking out there. So we began our trek, and like I said, it was windy that day. It was tough. It was a tough bike ride. I'll say the way out was not as bad, because not a lot of the time, but a couple of times you had a good tailwind behind you. So it was kind of helping push. But the way that we had to trek out, we're really heading east, and that wind is still coming from the northwest. And so it's still battering you a bit, but it's not as bad. Now, the bike course said it was flat. I did not drive the bike course. I should have looked at the elevation profile. A mistake I made, I'll never make again. Bike course said it was pretty flat. I do not believe it was flat. There were a lot of hills, and there was a lot of rough road, but it was overall, you're doing some hills. There's points where I'm hitting, I'm going downhill and I'm hitting 33, 34 miles an hour. So I'm flying down those, but I'm trekking back up and flying down and trekking back up, all the way to Chilton. And you should totally Google Chilton, Texas. There's nothing there. And Chilton was about mile 30, and you have a turnaround. It's an aid station, and it's a turnaround. And I had never before in my life grabbed anything off of anybody in an aid station ever on the bike. And so what's super convenient is they've got flipped open bottles of water, flipped open Gatorades, half bananas, whatever you need, gels, and they're handing them to you, and they're phenomenal. So kudos to all of the aid station folks, super phenomenal folks. Grabbing a water bottle, downing a good half of it before chucking it in the trash area. It's a pet peeve of mine. Always gotta make sure that I'm hitting the trash area. I don't want to litter, or leave anything that I didn't, I don't want to leave anything. Should be easy and simple for everybody. And you make a U-turn right at Chilton. I think it's right at mile 30, and you trek down a little bit of a hill before taking a right to go back up and down these hills that we trekked on the way here. And you make that right, and I would be lying if I told you it was easy. It was unbelievably difficult. You make that right-hand turn, I'll never forget this moment, and you are just battered by the wind. So 30 mile an hour headwinds at times. I'd say, I think the sustained was around 18 to 22 miles an hour of like sustained wind, but then 30-mile-an-hour gusts. And you are, not only are you having to now go uphill, but you're battling the wind. Also, the sun is out. So you're really confused as to like, am I hot? Am I wind burnt? Am I just exerting a ton of energy or am I just going so slow? And so I'll say that after 6 months of training, you really have a feel for, hey, I'm putting out this wattage. I know exactly what my bike should look like. I should be ranging 18 to 21 miles an hour standard. And there just comes a point where you're being battered by the wind, you're going uphill, and I'm looking down at my watch and I'm going 7 miles an hour. 7 miles an hour. And you're just dead in the water. And it wasn't just me. There were tons of people that were just, it was like you were in slow motion, honestly. It's like somebody had like pressed like slow-mo on life. And there were times when you'd get a huge gust of wind and it would rock you. It would move you and move your bike. And it was tough. Luckily, I will say from about mile 36 to 54, I, in my mind, was telling myself, like, I don't understand how I could ever do this again. Number one, I don't understand how I could ever do a full and double this mileage at 112 miles an hour, or 112 miles. And it's almost like from miles 36 to 54, nothing happened. You pedaled and you didn't know where you were going. You didn't know if you were moving. You didn't know. It just felt like that time frame took forever. Now, I'll be really honest and tell everybody that I had set a goal to finish in 3 hours, actually just sub 3 hours at 2 hours, 50 minutes on the bike, which was a little bit of a stretch. But I know I could easily do 60 miles in 3 hours. So I was like, okay, given some unknowns, let's go to 2 hours, 50 minutes. And I think it was 3 hours, 24 minutes, something like that, when I had finally finished the bike. It was absolutely brutal. It was tough. But I will be thankful that, number one, I did not get a pop tire. I did not wipe out, because I know people that wiped out. And I finished it. I hit all of the checkpoints. I did it. I did down gels probably every 45 minutes to an hour, 1 or 2 gels. I cached all my electrolytes on the bike, and I did grab water. There were 3 aid stations. I grabbed water at each one, downed quarter to a half of the bottle before I chucked it in the trash area, and then I was done. And then after the bike, so dismounting the bike, I was able to get both of my feet off of the pedals, kind of coast right in there to the dismount line, dismounted the bike, and at this point I didn't care if my tire popped, so I just ran that bike all the way to my transition area and got everything ready, downed an entire Uncrustable at this point, because I was starving at this point, and trekked out for the run. And the run is interesting because you're going in, the run out is the same as the bike out. And so it's really cool. You know, my family knew exactly where to go. So I was able to wave to them again. And your run for the first couple of miles is through Cameron Park. And if you've never been to Cameron Park in Waco, I highly recommend it. It's absolutely gorgeous. And honestly, it's one of my favorite runs. It's tough, but it's one of my favorite because it's hills. It's usually like an uphill. You do a loop before you come downhill, uphill, loop, downhill. and it's absolutely gorgeous. And the first kind of 5, 6, 7-ish miles, something like that, are all kind of on the Cameron Park side before you cross over and go to Baylor pretty much. And we ran a lot through Baylor University and McLean Stadium area, which was actually really cool. The aid stations were phenomenal. They were your cheerleaders. They had everything. Let me just tell you that there were, at every aid station, there were 2 water tables, 2 Gatorade tables, a Coca-Cola table, a Red Bull table. They had Morton gels, potato chips, pretzels, oranges, bananas, fig bars. I mean, the spread was perfect. And the first aid station, I stopped and I pretty much had one of everything. I said, I'm eating my way through this run. I'm just gonna eat, I'm gonna enjoy it. I've made it to the run this far. I just have to run 13.1 miles. And so, you know, the bulk of my mileage was already done. I've just got to make it another 13 miles. And so it was fantastic. It was super sunny at this point. You'd still catch some headwinds going over bridges on the run, and you're just like, are you kidding me? The wind hasn't stopped. And so you're like holding your run hat while you do it. And it was phenomenal. And then, you know, I think I got to mile 8 and I was like, okay, 5 more miles. I can go 5 more miles. And every mile was a checkpoint, right? 9 miles. Okay, I got 4.1 to go. 10 miles, 3.1 to go. And so you're just taking it mile by mile at this point. And I knew I was on the run. That's my strong suit, if I'm being honest. And so I was like, I can do this. I can absolutely cross this finish line. I can do this. And so you're just smiling through every single checkpoint that you give yourself. And it was one of the most, you know, you feel every moment in that. Like I wasn't going super fast because I was honestly taking in the sights, the sounds. I was enjoying it. I was thanking all the volunteers, from the cops blocking traffic to the aid station folks to the people that were just cheering. There were some fantastic signs like all toenails go to heaven. You know, just smile if you peed during the swim, like just tons of cool, fun signs that also help motivate you as an athlete. And so it was super great to go through all of that. But I couldn't wait to cross the Waco Suspension Bridge. The Waco Suspension Bridge is, number one, absolutely gorgeous, but that's where the finish line is at. The finish line runs through the bridge. You are greeted right at the end of the bridge by the IronMan sign, and you know there's folks kind of all down the bridge cheering you on as you come in. And so I get to that point and you're like overwhelmed. You're like, I'm just gonna coast in. You know, there's a guy in front of me. I'm not gonna pass him. Why am I gonna pass him? I'm not trying to race him. We've made it this far. We're gonna cross that line. And it was cool because there were lots of folks cheering you on the whole way. Saw my family, saw one of the coaches from the gym who was there cheering folks on and coaching an athlete. And so you just see this like full spirited community that's come out in full force to cheer you on. And so you run through that line, and I will say you see your name up on that board and there's no feeling like it. You're just kind of like, after the race, you're just really overcome with a lot of emotion. You've put so much into this day. You have given it your all. And were my legs tired? Absolutely. Was I exhausted? Absolutely. Were there salt stains all over my hat? Absolutely. Was I starving? 100%. But at the same time, like I had just conquered one of my own personal goals, and I proved myself right. I did what I said I was going to do. That was the last goal I had set for myself for 2023, and I finished it at that moment. And I will never forget that feeling. The coach from our gym, came and right at the finish line, they place your medal on, they give you your hat, they take your ankle monitor off, and you're able to grab, bananas and oranges and water and all the things. And so gathering all that stuff, and the coach from the gym, she's like, you did it, cheering me on. And we take some pictures, and my family's right there. And honestly, you're just kind of overcome with emotion of like, I have put in countless hours. I have somewhat disrupted my normal lifestyle, right? Like, you're trying to eat right, so you've made potentially changes to your diet. You've maybe disrupted kind of your everyday routine, because maybe now you're going to the gym in the morning or whatever it might be, right? You're trying to fit everything in. And so, my kids joked for months before, saying like, we're not going to give you a hug for 2 days because you're going to be so sweaty. And I made them give me a hug, even though I was disgustingly sweaty, and had just, it was honestly something that I will never forget. Now, what I will say is, at that exact moment, you cross that finish line and you forget everything. You forget that those wins sucked. You forget that you kept your head up the whole time on the swim. And I just knew, like, yeah, I'm going to do this again. I don't know when, but yeah, I've got to do it again. Like, it was phenomenal. I've drank the Kool-Aid. I'd highly recommend to anybody that's considering doing something hard in your life, like, give yourself some grace. Find what is hard in your life, and tackle it. Because there's no greater sense of accomplishment than being able to cross that finish line, or heck, even make it to the start line. Because making it to the start line is the goal. You can go 70 miles any day. You can go 5 miles any day. You can do whatever you want. But if you've made it to the start line, you've already done the work. And so I was looking back at Strava, and I had biked close to 1,100 miles in prep for this. I had run close to 600 miles in prep for this, and I didn't even look at my swim, but I'll tell you, it was a lot of swimming. And so, coming out of this kind of prep season for Ironman, I'll be honest, I don't know what's next. But I do know that I will be setting some new goals for myself. I will be accomplishing some hard things. And I will continue to document my journey, because I think it's something that's just so cool for my own self to look back on, but then too, for me to share that with other folks that might be nervous or scared. So if you have questions or comments, like, feel free to reach out. I will try and answer anything that I can, or I'll direct you where you need to go. I did hire a coach for Ironman prep because I had no clue what I was getting myself into. And Joe Rinaldi of Project Endure was and is phenomenal. And he's still my coach, and I'm super stoked to be joining Team Endure for 2024, because I know that as a team, we're going to accomplish and do some hard things, individually, but also together, and cheering each other on. And so I'm super excited to see what 2024 has in store. So stay tuned to see what's next. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to y'all soon.